Say, man, I want to welcome you to the Wednesday edition of Dirty Politrickz. I got my man Chuck Marley in the building. I'm the 5-star general, and I got one of the best politicians in the United States of America to me. My man, State Representative Ron Reynolds, is in the building, and tonight we're gonna have an intimate discussion about the voter suppression, voter integrity laws. Let's get to it, man.
Hey, Ron.
I want to welcome y'all to another episode of Dirty Politrickz and tell you it's always a blessing to have you guys in the building. And we're not going to talk, dirty politics tonight, but we're going to talk real politics tonight. Got one of the hardest working men in the state of Texas in the building. My man, State Representative Ron Reynolds, decided he would sit down and talk to us tonight, which is a blessing in itself because right now he's a very busy man. If you guys did not know, Ron and a couple of his people, the Democratic outlaws, jumped on a plane in Austin the other day and got the hell out of Dodge, man. And they did it for the reasons that they did it for. I'll let State Rep jump in here. Tell us why y'all hiding out and whoever, I know it was Jarvis that had the case of Miller Lite. But tell us why y'all had to leave the state of Texas.
Hey, Monroe, snitches get stitches, man. I can't divulge who had the I get to say it wasn't me, it wasn't mine, but I ain't gonna say whose it was, but it wasn't mine. I can tell you that. But we left because we believe fundamentally that there was no reason to implement House Bill 3. As you know, as a little background, we left at the end of May on right before the last day of the session, before sine die on the deadline, and we effectively killed Senate Bill 7. House Bill 6 was the companion bill, but it was the Senate bill that we heard. This was the bill that was authored by Briscoe Cain, the chair of the Elections Committee. And for those who probably don't know, I served 2 sessions on the Elections Committee, and I really enjoyed my service on that committee. But fundamentally, we didn't see any reason that we should include many of the provisions within the bill. I know that's debatable, but that was our opinion. And you may know that we have been trying to get online voter registration. In fact, I've carried that bill for a number of years, haven't been able to get a hearing, as well as a bill for same-day registration. So that is really what we wanted to see. But some of the provisions that we saw in the House Bill 7 that I had the most problems with were the provisions that would have delayed souls to the polls. It would have made it where you couldn't vote on Sunday before Election Day until after 1 p.m. That, as you all know, was stripped out in the current bill for the special session. House Bill 3 nor Senate Bill 1 have the starting time after 1 p.m. on the Sunday before Election Day. So that's some progress. Also, the other provision that was stripped out that was included within the conference committee that we killed was a provision that would have made it easier to invalidate an election. That provision was stripped out. That provision is not in the bill. So I want to commend that there's been some progress. I think there's still some other things that we would like to see changed. We had recently, and I'll close on this. Recently, we had hearings. I know you testified. I know you testified previously. I was there. I witnessed you testify. But recently, we had hearings where it was over 23 hours of testimony. And there were some amendments that we wanted to see included in the bill that were not included. And as you know, the final vote was on a party line basis. All Democrats voted no, all Republicans voted yes. And so we believe that this is a partisan bill that doesn't have bipartisan support. And as you know, only the 5th time in the Texas history was there a quorum break. The 4th time was in the May, and this is the 5th time. So my colleagues and I left Austin on Monday and flew here so that we could advocate to Congress, particularly the U.S. Senate, to pass House Resolution 1, the For the People Act, and House Resolution 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, to enact federal legislation to deal with these laws. So that, in a nutshell, is the reason why I'm here. I thought that it was the best place for us to go because we think that this should be a federal solution, just like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It was a Texan, Lyndon Baines Johnson, that signed that bill into law that really effectively, Monroe and Chuck, ended Jim Crow laws. No longer could you have literacy tests and poll taxes. That was all eliminated on August of 1965. So we believe, and it's debatable, but we believe that this is a modern form of voter suppression, and we deem it something that we stood on principle for, made good trouble, and left Texas. So that, in a nutshell, is why we're here. We believe that voting is a fundamental right, the bedrock of our democracy here in America, and this is something that's turned, unfortunately, into a very partisan fight between the Democrats and Republicans.
Mr. Reynolds, the big take that's being told to the media is that it's racist and it's Jim Crow 2.0. What about it is racist, these laws?
Well, I wouldn't call it racist. I would call it that it has a disparate impact, Chuck, on many Black and brown communities. That is what the experts have given us information on, and we're relying upon that information because is it that Black people can't get IDs? Is that what's... No, sir. That's not it. Okay, if you go back and look at the data from the 2020 election, and I'm gonna focus on Harris County, the largest county in the state. When you look at the information that was sent from Chris Hollins and the data, that it showed that overwhelmingly African Americans and Hispanics were the ones that took advantage of the 24-hour voting, that took advantage of the drive-through voting. And so we believe that because this bill doesn't allow for those things, it eliminates 24-hour voting, it eliminates drive-through voting, and it also increases criminal penalties. We saw what just happened to, I think it was Purvis Rogers, most recently, a Harris County resident that voted. Of course, he found out that he voted after waiting in line for 6 hours, that he could not vote, or that he was still on papers, haven't completed his parole, and he was charged and given $100,000 bond. And so we believe that when you have increased criminal penalties for minor voting violations, that will send a chilling effect among people to vote. The other provision that we had a concern about was the provision that would allow partisan poll watchers to have unfettered access to the voter. When you say unfettered access to the voter, there's nothing in there that gives them unfettered access to the voter. Well, what I mean by that is, it gives them unfettered access to what happens to the ballots and what happens to stuff when it transports around. It doesn't give them more access to go stand over the voter's shoulder. That's not true. Well, the way that we read the bill is that it would allow a partisan poll watcher to be able to. Where does it say partisan poll watcher? I'm sorry? All poll watchers are partisan. That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. Partisan poll watcher. I said partisan poll watcher. But you're saying partisan like they're partisan to the voter or something. Well, we've seen. Who are they partisan to? We've seen True the Vote, and we've seen some unruly people that were partisan poll watchers that were very disruptive at polling sites. And I've seen Longoria. I've had affidavits from two poll watchers where Longoria, who was running stuff in Harris County, shoved them out and wouldn't let them see what they were doing with ballots, boxes of ballots at the NRG site, where by the way, it was the 24-hour site, and there was very few
people that came through that site.
Well, Chuck, I don't have any knowledge of that.
No, what was going on with the 24-hour stuff was jumping around so they could move ballots late at night. It had nothing to do with, we had thousands of people showing up late at night that were driving through this after-hours deal. In other words, this integrity law is to stop a lot of these loopholes that are being used by people to cheat. Okay, there's nothing racist about that.
Well, Chuck, let me say this, and I think it's good to have fruitful debate. But would you agree with me that after the 15th Amendment, that blacks could vote? Correct?
Yeah, blacks can vote. There's nothing in here that says that black people can't vote.
Hold on.
I mean, what does that have to do with anything?
No, I'm going to tell you, it's a part two to that. So we agree that the 15th Amendment to the Constitution allowed blacks to vote. Prior to that, blacks could not vote. We would agree with that, correct?
And there was instances where non-land owning whites couldn't vote. There's always been a problem.
Let me get to my point. And the 19th Amendment allowed women the right to vote. So I'm just stating facts, okay? But
those facts have nothing to do with what's going on with the integrity laws.
Hold on, Chuck. Even after the passage of the 15th Amendment, you had it where that there were things during the Jim Crow era that were called poll taxes and literacy tests that were applied. They didn't say
by the Democrats, applied by the Democrats.
Hold on, Chuck. Let me get this out. That were designed to suppress blacks from voting. So blacks could vote, but because of Jim Crow laws, you have to guess how many bubbles in the bar of soap.
What's specific in here?
Then you had grandfather clauses that exempted whites from those same provisions and those poll taxes. So even though you were black, you had to pay a poll tax. You had to complete a literacy test. And it wasn't until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 in August, it wasn't until then that you eliminated those barriers. Do you know in Fort Bend County that before that you had a whites only primary, and it wasn't until the Supreme Court struck that down that eliminated that from being the practice?
Are you alleging that any of that is happening now?
No. All I'm saying, Chuck, is that sometimes you have unintended. Sometimes you have.
Those weren't unintended. Those were intended.
No. Sometimes you have outcomes, even though the law didn't say blacks can't vote, blacks can't do this. When it came to the poll taxes and literacy tests.
Is there a poll tax in there?
All I'm telling you is this, Chuck, is that we have done extensive research. President Biden talked about this in Philadelphia at his speech on voting rights.
Let's do this research. Yeah, well, hold on. I will say this. President Biden said yesterday that enacting these integrity laws was the worst thing since the Civil War. Well, guess what? The Civil War ended slavery. Okay, these integrity laws are going to end a lot of cheating. So if he wants to compare it that way, I guess so.
But Chuck, here's a question I have for Chuck. Are you familiar with the Secretary of State's? Are you familiar with the Secretary of State's testimony that she gave where she said that the 2020 elections were, in her own words, they were safe and reliable? Do you know that she said that?
Were you aware of all the people that we've got?
No.
These people whose deceased relatives were voting?
Well, why did the Secretary of State say that? I heard Monroe's testimony, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying the Secretary of State, who's the elections administrator for the state, those weren't my words; those were her words. So all I'm telling you is that that's the information that we're relying upon.
Okay, so let me jump in here, guys. Y'all are very spirited. Let me jump in here. First of all, I want to say one. That me and Ron, we cool as a fan. I think he works hard. He works his behind off. We're not always on the same side on some issues, and
we agree to disagree. But we're both passionate, and we respect each other.
Now, for me, this is what I look at. Somebody has labeled this Jim Crow 2.0. Now, I got a strange feeling when I go to the polls. Y'all notice I didn't say nothing. Y'all, let me finish my thought. I'm not going to be asked to pay a poll tax. I'm not going to be asked to count jelly beans in a jar. What they're going to ask me for is my ID. I have to present my ID. They have to scan it. They're going to give me my ticket. I'm going to go vote. Well, I find it very hard to believe, and I don't know why this lady said that. I got a strange feeling why I know why she said it. Because if the cheating is taken out, because I believe there's massive cheating. I sat there the other night at 3 o'clock in the morning and came in there with evidence of cheating in Harris County. Chris Hollins, and this is not Ron Reynolds' thoughts, this is not Chuck Mahler's thoughts. Chris Hollins was placed in Harris County to do exactly what he does, which is nothing when it pertains to voter fraud. Because if he would do something about it, you would have addressed the concerns of Chuck, Gary Monroe, and people that brought this to them. The DA would have looked at the stuff that we brought. Nobody paid any attention to it. So when they scream Jim Crow 2.0, it's like it's a slap in the face for me because I've read the whole bill. I've read the whole bill from front to back. I'm trying to figure out, and like you say, that's what the experts are telling you guys. I want to know who the experts are because I don't see suppression in the bill. They're asking people to have an ID. Now, they did go back and they fixed the souls to the polls. I heard that when I sat there to testify that night. But the main thing that they kept bringing up, and you were not in there, Ron.
No,
they
I wouldn't.
kept bringing up the criminal penalties.
Right.
It's like the only thing they have a problem with is the criminal penalties that people will incur if they get caught cheating. So my question to you, without the experts, do you feel that this bill is suppressing black and brown votes?
Well, Gary, let me tell you. So I've worked closely with Gary Bledsoe, the state president of the NAACP, and a prominent civil rights and voting rights act lawyer. And Attorney Bledsoe testified at that hearing. And he is one of the experts that I'm relying on. So I'm giving authority for my sources, and Gary Bledsoe is one of my main sources. Another one is Garza, who is the attorney for the Mexican American Legislative Council, MALC, as well as LULAC. And he gave a similar report that I read regarding the disparate impact that it would have on Hispanics. And Gary Bledsoe gave it on African Americans. So my opinion is based upon the documentation submitted by those experts on the disparate impact that it would have on black and brown Texans. African Americans in Texas, Gary, have the largest population in the United States of America, according to the 2020 census. So my advocacy is to be a voice for many of the African Americans in this state.
So let's go through some of these changes. In other words, it's going to happen. So, and I want to know, I want to know specifically what the issue is. I mean, you can quote people that say, well, this is going to affect brown people, it's going to affect black people, whatever. They're not making a case why.
Okay, but let me jump in here real quick, Chuck. Let me jump in here. Ron, this is what I see.
Okay.
I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for Gary Bledsoe, but I think that the train is come and gone. We're no longer in the civil rights era. You can't keep deferring to the civil rights era to try and get your point across for this bill not to pass. To LULAC, I think that you're placating LULAC to be able to allow undocumented people to be able to vote because the IDs were a problem. And the thing is, Ron, you were a young boy just like me and Chuck were young boys. When it was time for us to go to the library, we needed an ID card. I can't come and speak at a city council meeting unless I have an ID. So some of the things that they're saying, it doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense. And me, I'm going to defer to me. Voter suppression means, like in Georgia, they're saying, oh, well, they can't have water at the polls. No, what they're telling you, you can't wrap that push card around that water and give it to somebody in that line. That's why they're saying you can't have water at the polls. But in early voting, and I've been in Fort Bend and I've been in Harris, they're never lines. They're never lines. Souls to the polls. and I'm gonna just say this here because y'all know I'm gonna tell the truth. What Negro pastor get out of church at 1 o'clock anyway?
Gary, you know they got early services, man.
Man, they got early services, but that laugh one gonna last till 2:30, 3 o'clock.
They got the 8 o'clock.
My senior citizens, they don't seem to have a problem getting to the polls. They don't have a problem getting to the polls. I really think it has a lot to do with the criminal penalties. And my next question is gonna be a tough one, Ron, but I'm gonna give it to Chuck.
Okay.
You cut out there, Gary.
It's your question, Chuck.
Oh, so we've talked earlier, and you said that it was differences and that it wasn't a racial issue. Okay, that's what you said at the beginning. So let's go through some of the main issues that they're changing, and I want to know how this is going to affect minorities. Okay. Cleaning up the voter rolls of people who have moved and people who are deceased. How is that hurting minorities?
I didn't say that one does.
So that's in the bill. Conduct and security of elections. The Secretary of State, who you praised a while ago, who I ain't too crazy about, because I really think they'll tell whoever the election went good, because that was their job to make sure the election went good. So the Secretary of State in there is for them to adopt guidelines and to give it out and to help the county clerks. Okay. Standardized times. In other words, hey, 6 a.m. to 11 or 10, I think it's 6 to 10. Okay. And you got 9 hours. They added an hour. Before it was 8 hours. Now it's 9 hours. Or it's 10 hours, and then it was 9 before. So in other words, they're expanding the hours. They're just not allowing for people to set up any time.
Chuck,
where is that going to hurt minorities?
Okay. Let me tell you. So do you believe in local control?
It depends.
Well, okay. So
I mean, there's a reason you have a legislature. You don't have a legislature in Harris County. You have a legislature in Austin.
Let me say
I don't believe that the Harris County gets to make the election law.
I don't think one size should fit all. What works in Harris County doesn't necessarily work in Nueces County. There are 254 counties in the state. Harris County is larger than some states. So why do we have to have the same?
Harris County gets more polling locations.
No, but Harris County wants to have hours longer than
what Harris County specifically wants is not necessarily what's right.
Well, but what I'm saying is local control.
More polling locations, more hours are given in this integrity bill.
Well, but
so
Chuck,
how is that hurting minorities?
Well, because Chuck, many minorities work multiple jobs to make ends meet because we don't have a livable wage in Texas. Chuck, we don't have a livable wage.
That's not a minority thing.
Our minimum wage in Texas is $7.25 an hour. So many minorities, many people of color, many poor people, they work multiple jobs. So what I was told that many people needed those extended voting hours to have the flexibility to go vote after they in between working those two jobs. And so you're now limiting the hours that you can go vote. Why do we need to limit the hours when
there's 7 days a week to vote? Okay, there's 7 days. They give 7 days to vote. They give 2 weeks of early voting.
Correct.
Okay? Employers can be sued if they don't allow you time to go vote.
Yeah, but they don't pay. They don't have to pay you for it.
So where are you getting this?
They don't have to pay you for it, Chuck. So all I'm saying is I don't see why that is an issue. And here's the bigger issue. Chuck, were you at the hearings as well?
So yes, I've been at some of the hearings, but let's go through the list.
Let me just say this one quick thing.
Let's go to the next one.
Let me just add this one quick thing because I have it. Okay. I have this in here, and both of you should be able to say it. Okay, so at the House, the registration in the House, you have 484 members of the public came to the Capitol to register a position on the bill. 407 were marking themselves as opposed. Only 65 registered in support and 12 were neutral. How do you justify an overwhelming majority of people that came to the Capitol to register opposition to House Bill 3 when only 65 registered in support. So if we're talking about doing the will of the people made their voices heard. In the Senate,
that's because they bust people in for this. They bust people in for this. So don't give me that line that more people.
No. I'm giving you.
You're
the
at
stats.
the college. You're at Austin.
I'm giving
You're
you.
right there at Austin. They got people out of class to come and protest. They didn't even know what they were protesting about. The best arguments that were given were the people that were for the integrity bill.
Does
that
opinion
matter?
That's your opinion. Only 65.
Well, that's your opinion that it mattered that they bust people in and people didn't know what they were talking about and came in and talked about it.
Well, if you talk about a democracy where you want to take into account
democracy, you don't care about democracy. You're in DC. You're in DC. You don't care about democracy.
I'm utilizing a constitutional provision that requires 3/4 of the legislature present.
Why are you hiding in DC?
Let me say this. You say it was 65 people that were for the bill.
That's the documentation they sent me, Jerry.
Okay. I seen Representative Bushy, if I'm saying his name right. I sat and watched him the first time I went, and he grinded the speakers that were for the bill. He never asked me one question. Because I sound like I knew what I was talking about. Now, when I went back the other night, he was grinding them again. I need to find out, and I'm just asking because maybe that's a question you can go around and talk to your Democratic colleagues that you with in Washington. I showed up with evidence, and not one Democrat asked to see it.
I saw you. You had a folder and you had a zip drive. I watched your testimony.
I had everything. I'm ready for him. And challenged I forgot the name of the female rep to my right in the blue, but I challenged her to ask me questions.
I heard you. I heard your testimony.
The thing is if you ask me the question, I just might have the answer. Why is it? And maybe I told you this question gonna be tough.
Sure.
Why are Democrats not even trying to address the actual fraud that has been caught?
Well, Jerry, I'll tell you why. Because I asked District Attorney Kim Ogg and I asked District Attorney Brian Middleton, do you have evidence that has been presented to you of voter fraud that you believe that we need to further change the laws? And both of them said no.
I gave her evidence.
That was District Attorney Kim Ogg and District Attorney Brian Middleton. So if I'm going on the District Attorney.
Let's go to Kim because Ron doesn't know that evidence was presented to Kim that showed voter fraud. Evidence was presented to Kim. And this is not Ron or Chuck saying this, y'all. This is Gary Monroe. I stand behind my comments. Kim can't say anything because you got voter harvesters working your campaign.
Exactly.
We've proven that. So she's not going to say it. And this is after I got my behind out there and campaigned for her and found out later you had them people on your team that was out there, the people that can decide and do something, Ron.
Right.
Not Brian. I don't know anything about Brian Middleton. Yeah, I'm speaking of Kim Ogg with what I actually know.
Got you.
And she got it. She refused to even acknowledge it. I gave her voter fraud.
And refused to stop it.
Never answered the email.
Did she take it to a grand jury and have them investigate it? Okay.
Never investigated it. County attorney won't even look at it because they all benefit from the teams that was working for them. Now, in your case, I can't say that about Brian Middleton, which is one of my favorite DAs.
Right.
One of my favorite DAs.
Yeah. That's all I'm basing my information on. So you asked me how I got my information, and that's what I'm basing my information on.
And Ron, let me make something clear too. It's not a personal attack against you.
No, I don't take it that way.
It's a debate. All right, so I apologize if I come across a little.
Yeah. No offense taken at all.
And like I've said before, I don't have a problem with an extra 100,000 black people voting in Harris County. I would prefer it because there'll be less cheating goes on. The more black people that vote. I don't want 2 ballot harvesters running around voting for 100,000 black people that don't know they're being voted on, or they're passed away and they're cheating.
Chuck, you and I agree. Hey, that's something we can agree on.
I'm fine with more black people voting.
Chuck, I don't want that either. I heard Mr. Monroe's testimony that there was evidence of dead people voting. There shouldn't be. There was evidence of people who were from New Orleans. I think you said, Jerry, that weren't registered here that voted. Hey, I don't support that. If you have evidence of that, then they need to be prosecuted.
We've given it to the Secretary of State. We can't give it to Kim Ogg because she ain't going to do anything with it. But that's some of the ballot harvesters are ones that she uses.
Chuck, I am not here to support cheating or ballot harvesters. So you're not going to get me to support any illegal activity, dead people voting. No, I'm not going to support anybody who does that. They should be prosecuted.
So let's go into. So Ron, let's go into some of what's in here, which is very key related to the ballot harvesting. Okay, there's organized groups that are going and filling out absentee ballots. Okay, they're so crappy at filling them out that it's the same signature one right after the other. Okay, but nobody checks this out. Okay,
well, they should. If you have
they should, but nobody's doing it. Okay, and so that's one of the provisions in here is that if somebody's going to absentee ballot, they need to give their ID. And some people say, well, they don't have a copier. I heard that crap about they don't have a copier. Guess what? You don't need a copier. You can put your driver's license number down.
Right. Yeah. Well.
Why is that racist? What's wrong with that?
No. I listen, Chuck. I'm not throwing out racist. So don't misquote me. I said that has a disparate impact. I never said anything about racist. So I don't want to be misquoted.
But that's a soft way of peddling it. A disparate impact. That's the same thing. Just not as hard.
If you examine laws, you do empirical data and studies. You look at disparities. There are disparities within our criminal justice system that justify criminal justice reform. So there are disparities that exist that justified some of the provisions of the George Floyd Act. So I'm just saying based upon legal standards here. So I'm not trying to have a wordsmith, but I'm not saying racist. That's what I'm saying.
But that's it. It's legal. In other words, they're trying to hash this out. You're supposed to be in Austin trying to hash this out. Okay, you've gotten some of the things you wanted that you argued about.
Some of it I have, yeah. So Chuck, if we hadn't killed SB 7, then those other 2 provisions would have been in there. So what you're telling me is, well, Reynolds, if you would have did that, hey Monroe, I got an emergency call. Let me just mute for a second, and I'll be.
It's a spirited discussion. Chuck, you got the flow. Talk to the people.
Well, some of the issues are the ballot harvesters. That's the biggest thing. Okay, and to me, it appears that people are just hiding behind the race issue. So in other words, Ron said it wasn't race, but then he said it's disparate impact. Well, that's the same thing. It's just soft pedal.
Well, it said that they deferred to the experts who said it was
but it's their experts. So in other words, the Republicans get experts that say, well, it's this way. The Democrats get experts that say it's this way. That's the legislature's job to get in there and hash this out.
I want to put up your comment, Tanya. You say this is all about black people not voting because the R's win in Texas. So I'm not seeing why this fraud is an issue now in 2021. I don't know how to take that comment. I don't know if that's the way I feel or maybe it's different. But I will say this here. I don't care if I'm a state rep or I'm just Gary Monroe. No one will tell me how to think. That's why I took the time to read the bill. And you guys out there making very spirited comments, but be honest with yourself. Have you read the bill? If you haven't read the bill, then you don't see why we argue. Nobody can just come and tell me that a bill is Jim Crow 2.0. No, I'm not falling for that. Because when you say that, you're taking us way, way back, man. You're taking us way, way back. And if you feel that this bill is Jim Crow 2.0, a lot of times I will tell you you've not read it. They did increase the hours. Everything Chuck said, they did it. But when I bring the evidence, when Chuck brings the evidence, my question to you, if they can scream voter suppression, why you can't look at the evidence? That's why we bitching and complaining. And that's anybody that's in the state house, Republican or Democrat. Al says it's definitely voter suppression. How? If you want to vote, go vote. We just told, the man just told you. They say, well, we'll do away with drive-through voting. Well, people need to go vote 24 hours a day. Wasn't nobody at no damn Reliance Stadium all night long. Wasn't nobody in no line trying to vote at Reliance Stadium. Come on, man, talk to your boy, man. Y'all out there? We riding the streets, we looking. Wasn't nobody in no lines trying to vote at Reliance Stadium at no 3 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't happening. It's a reason why this has to be that way. A lot of people, because they've not done their jobs, they are afraid they're going to lose their seats. Whether it's in the legislation, whether it's in the courthouses, they have not done their jobs. And now they're going to lose their seats. So the thing is, y'all tell me what voter suppression is.
While we're waiting on Ron to get back, and this is not directed at Ron, but this is at the fact that all these people fled to out of Austin. The gentleman that paid for the private jet is these guys right here. Okay. And they have a business that deals with commercial real estate, hospitality, and basically they're billionaires. So if you think they're doing this for free, you're crazy. They didn't move them for free. They moved them for benefits because they're going to be doing some deals behind the scenes with the Democrats. So big money is in play with the private jets that's flying them and alcohol up to Washington, D.C.
Oh, here's a question for the audience. If you've ever voted early, how long you stood in the line? If you ever voted early, how long you stood in the line? I mean, Al, my brother, you made a comment. And I only asked a simple question. If it's voter suppression, how? I got the popcorn ready for this one. How is it voter suppression? One of the biggest issues I said earlier was IDs. LULAC got a problem with it. Because LULAC want people to vote that ain't got no right to be here. LULAC want people to come up out the woodwork and just vote. That ain't got no business here. How fast that child democracy? And now, with the way they changed voter laws in Harris County, you don't have to just vote in your precinct. You can go anywhere. So if you went to early voting, Rose City Rider, and you stood in line, hold on, who was that? DG Blue 22, if you stood in line 2 hours, you must have been at somebody's house. I ain't seen nobody stand in line no 2 hours at no early voting.
Well, hey, Gary, one time they had a bunch of people stand in line was at PSU when they conveniently, the couple of polling locations around them got closed down. And that was so they could funnel traffic. Some of these cheaters could funnel traffic. So there could be really long extended waiting hours. So that polling location could be up. Because, in other words, if you're the last polling station to close, you know how many votes you need to cheat based on the other numbers that come in. So there's an advantage to closing some of these stations down and having a large crowd at one. I don't care who's doing it, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. That's bullshit. That's just a way to cheat.
Like I said, man, you got a right to support whatever you want to support. But ain't nobody finna tell me nothing about no voter suppression. Ain't nobody finna ask no black person to take no tests at no polls. Ain't nobody finna ask no black person to count no jelly beans and no jaws. So when you say voter suppression, you really need to bring it home. Because when you say that to some of us, we want you to explain how. Don't just say it. Explain how. I got facts. Let me go to facts since you know, I think y'all, and the one thing we gonna do, we gonna keep it 100. You want to say Chuck don't have facts? Here's some of Chuck facts. Jesse Burke's been dead since 2015. How the hell he voted in the last election? He been dead since 2015, man.
I was the one that made the phone calls to the relatives and talked to them about their deceased relative voting, and they were all pissed off about it. And guess what? Every one of these people that got cheated on was black.
Hold on.
So it's black people that are getting cheated.
You found Tommy Bookman too, didn't you?
Yep.
Dead since 2016. This Chuck's, come on, baby, this Chuck's facts. Al, you mean to tell me it took you 30 minutes to come up with that comment? Anytime you ask a disabled person to prove their disability in order to get help voting is voter suppression. It ain't in the bill. They took it out, Al. Anything else?
Well, and I would go with the disability too. In other words, a lot of people are getting government assistance for disabilities. They have to tell the government their disability to get the assistance. This is one of the most important rights we have is voting. So in other words, that's something that I have no problem with.
Let me say,
if you're going to ask for special concessions to vote, then you need to explain why.
Some people will never listen to you because you're white. Let's just put it out there. Y'all don't want to hear what Chuck got to say. Well, what's your problem with me? I'm just as white as Chuck, huh? And I got a problem with it. Right now, it's so much drama going on in politics in Harris County that is unreal. Unreal. It don't matter what Chuck say. You don't want to hear what Chuck got to say because he's a white guy. But Chuck is proving it. No. Church ladies say, I like y'all both. Chuck, that's what she say. But some of y'all are just racist to begin with. You don't want to hear what the white guy say. He one of them. No, he one of us. This is a white guy to come to the hood and help us with our people. And why do we need to come and help us with our people? Because you got some Negroes that ain't trying to help us with our people.
The ballot harvesters.
Hold on, let me put Tanya's comment up. Tanya, let me put a comment up. Because it doesn't matter what Chuck say. He said Harris County closed sites because they wanted to cheat. He ain't lied about nothing. It's hard for you to believe. You don't want to believe it. I get it. I get it. And that's our problem as black people. When the truth is staring us in our damn face, we don't want to hear it. And this is how they get us every single time. And then you know what happens? No matter who tells us the truth, white, black, Latino, whatever, it pits us against us. I'm labeled disabled. Oh, good Lord. But I walked my disabled ass in that Capitol the other day to speak. I walked my disabled ass up in that goddamn voting booth to vote. I didn't want no early ballot in the mail. I wanted to go in the polls and vote.
Gary, somebody sent me a message that said that Big Tech's closing the site.
What?
Somebody just sent me a message that said that Big Tech's closing some of the sites that this is on.
Let them close it. The truth don't need to be heard. This is a black man talking to black people. You have been trusting the black elected officials forever. I will say that Ron Reynolds is a hard-working elected official. I've seen him get down on the floor. I've seen Jarvis Johnson get down on the floor, man. All elected officials don't get down like these cats, man. They got some hard-working women in there that I admire. But everybody don't get on. Now, this is a hotbed. This is a tough subject. And it ain't for everybody to. It is not for everybody to be able to debate. Don't know if Ron gonna come back. Maybe it got called away or something. But I don't think there's anybody that's elected that can sit in a chair and debate me on this point. Not with the evidence that I have. Not one Democrat has asked to see the evidence in the state of Texas. And the question is, why?
The ballot harvesters, from the work I've done, the place they cheat the most is they're cheating black neighborhoods. In other words, they're stealing votes from black people. I mean, they're filling these absentee ballots out, mailing it in. If that gets in before the actual person goes to vote, the second vote gets thrown out.
I want to read this comment. I'm really trying. So he has proof that Chris Hollins said to his staff, let's close it. Look, ma'am, let me tell you something. You want this real or you want sugarcoat? Fuck Chris Hollins. The question is how did he even get in the seat? Did he get in the seat because they wanted to send out 3 million mail ballots that none of us wanted? And Diane Troutman had to mysteriously resign her seat a day after telling Commissioner Ellis, this is not the climate to send 3 million ballots out. Chris Hollins is a fucking puppet. He's a puppet. And he'll do anything the puppet master tells him to do. Now, if you want to believe him, believe him. But if we fuck around and end up in chains in about 9 years, you gonna keep believing them then? We getting played by our own people, man. So here's a question, Chuck. Maybe you can answer it. Maybe somebody out there can answer it. The voter suppression, voter integrity bill, they walked out on, they flew to Washington. Which bill realistically affected black people the most? The voter integrity bill, suppression bill, or the gun law bill? Chuck, talk to me. Because they didn't walk out on the gun law bill.
Yeah, they disagree with the gun law. They didn't walk out on that. In other words, this is from high up. Hey, from the top of the Democratic Party, claim this is racist. Do whatever you can to stop this, or the groups that cheat. I'm not saying all Democrats cheat, but the ones that do know that it's going to affect the chances of the ones that are cheating. And once you get in power, you get in power with that money because you're paying money to ballot harvesters to cheat for you. You don't care about the voters. You care about that money, whether it be your money or it be somebody like the Zeds or somebody who's flying them around in private jets, their money. You do what they want. You don't do what the people want.
Tanya Garrett, if they sent you, so you directed this question to me. I'm trying to let you stay here, baby, but undoubtedly you just ain't been watching this show long enough. But I'm going to answer your question. You said Chuck had facts. Does he have proof, yes or no? I said, yeah, and I put that on Turner's mama. Won't you go ask your DA if he got proof? She got it. Won't you go ask Christian Menifee if they're proof? They got it. It's a damn shame that we got to go all the way to Austin, Texas to get recourse for cheating in Harris County. Why we got to do that? Because everybody cheating. I said it and I meant it. I said it and I meant it. So the thing is you're very entertaining. I like you. But you don't have to believe the truth. Just like y'all believe that Joe Biden was going to be the second coming of Jesus. That motherfucker look like Lucifer every day.
Well, and think about it like this too. If we're going to continue to allow cheating, the ballot harvesters, at the end of the day, they work for money. Okay? Who has more money? The Bushes, the Clintons, or Biden, or Obama? The Bushes. The Republicans like the Bushes have way more money, way more deep pockets. So if cheating's going to be opened up and continue to go, this ain't a party issue. This is going to be a money issue. Those that have money do what they want, run elections, and the rest of us just sit back and watch crime grow, watch our neighborhoods go to shit, and nothing happens. So in other words, everybody needs to be against cheating, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Liberal.
I just don't get. I just don't get. And I thought about this today. Why is it so hard to accept the truth? I listen to speaker after speaker go up to that microphone the other night at the Capitol. And ain't none of them goddamn people make sense. And they stood there and they grinded them. And why do you feel this is suppression? And they had every excuse in the world. But when a man walked up to that microphone with the fraud in his hand, with the flash drive in my hand, I didn't get one question. It's hard to question the truth when it's in your face. So the thing is, nobody has said it. Al was the only one that attempted to answer the question. Where is the voter suppression? Where is it? Where is it? I just don't see it, Chuck.
Well, I think it's because the cheating is in the shadows. And the cheating a lot of times is done by politicians. And politicians become DAs. Politicians become law enforcement. Politicians become legislators. So, you know, digging this out ain't easy. And when you have a handful of people trying to stop this, who are private citizens with, you know, trying to make a living, talking about 2 jobs, this is 2 jobs for me. I have to make a living before I can even do this work.
Now, here's some advice for every Democratic legislator that's there. Instead of hanging out with Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, when you gonna get over there to Joe Manchin? That's who's stopping your federal legislation. Don't Democrat.
And I wanted to mention something.
You froze up, Chuck. Joe Manchin.
Well, they were talking about wanting to pass House Bill 1, which would be the U.S. House Bill 1 and the U.S. Senate Bill 1. One of the main provisions in that is nobody has to show ID to vote. Nobody. You don't have to show ID to absentee ballot. You don't have to show ID to show up and vote. You can just give your name. Just give a name of somebody that's on the list and go in there and vote. That's all you have to do. So you talk about a bad bill. I mean, horrendous.
Look, you ain't got to show no ID to vote. All you need to know is a bunch of dead people named run all around Houston and vote.
What's stopping people from voting in 5 counties if you don't show ID?
Exactly.
That's the bill they want to pass at the U.S. Congress that Ron talked about.
Errol, you say they are cheating blacks. I want the names of the cheaters. Come on, Errol. We
Gloria Palmer, Evelyn Dupree.
But we just said the names a thousand times. We just said the names 1,000 times. Ray Jones, we just said the name 1,000 times. Ain't nobody really trying to do nothing about this. The definition of insanity is you keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And that's all we doing. You really think this is going to change without forcing the hands of the people that's doing the dirt? If the cheating is going on and you're cheating to stay in office, why aren't we benefiting from your cheat? Let me go slow with y'all for that. If you cheating to stay in office, why are we not benefiting from your cheating? We live in communities with cancer clusters. We live in communities with food deserts, with failing schools, high crime rates. Are we benefiting off the cheating? If you cheating, Why are we not benefiting off the cheating? Chuck?
Yeah. Not benefiting because, like I said before, if you get your vote, if you get your election by cheating and you get 10% of your vote with absentee ballot or cheating or some shenanigans at the with the ballots when they're at the office because there's no poll watchers there to watch what happens and they discard boxes or put in new boxes. If that's the way a politician can win, then they don't have to do what their voters want because their voters were paid for with cash to the ballot harvesters to cheat. So in other words, if I get my votes as a politician by going out and campaigning and then having to perform when I'm in the office, then I'm going to have to do some stuff. I'm going to have to respond to the voters. But if I know I can cheat to win, then all I need to do is make sure that I make whoever paid for the cheating happy, or if I paid for it, line my pocket.
So maybe that's why after the elections, y'all get treated like shit. Because they took care of who they needed to take care of. They didn't need your vote. They were going to get your vote regardless. Final thoughts, Chuck.
Well, I appreciate Ron for being on here and talking for when he did. And I appreciate that he tries to work to get things done. I don't appreciate that all of them are in Austin now hiding from their duty. I mean, there's laws passed all the time where there's parts of the legislation that somebody doesn't agree with, but everybody doesn't get up and just run and hide. They work it out either at that point or they win the next election and they press the issue with the public. So, I mean, and you heard Ron say that this wasn't a race thing. This wasn't a racial issue. So he backed down off the Jim Crow 2.0. He backed down off of this was a racist thing that people were trying to do. He started coming back more to the facts, and he agreed with a lot of the things that are in it. But what you hear in the news media, pushed by certain Democrats, is that this is the end of the world, man. This is the most racist thing to ever happen since, slavery. It's just crazy. That's just buzzwords to get people hyped up without any information.
The bottom line is this. Our communities have been destroyed because we trusted people that were never going to work for our communities in the first place. It's like the Texas Texas Coalition of Black Democrats and all their foolishness. Can somebody tell me what they've done for the African American community? With all the money that they've secured from politicians and through dues and all that, what have they done for the community? Can y'all show me something that a prominent African American politician has done for an African American community? Yeah, since we're gonna talk Jim Crow, let's go talk about one of the greatest Jim Crow fighters of all time, John Lewis. Can you show me something that he did for that African American community? Let's talk about another freedom fighter. Let's talk about Elijah Cummings. Can you show me what he did for Baltimore all those years? The reason that our community is in the shape that it's in is because we trusted people that didn't have a vested interest in our community. And the only people they wanted to take care of were the professional Negroes, the ones that didn't live in public housing, the ones that did not drive the fancy cars or work the six-figure jobs. They didn't want to represent the poor Black person. So therefore, they forgot about us. And the sad part is, man, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what really happened. So nowadays, you're cheating to get in office, but you ain't doing a damn thing for us. And that's the sick part of it. I'm being honest with you, dog. That's the sick part of it, man. Say it's another spirited discussion with the best in the business. Say, man, it's Dirty Politrickz on a Wednesday, man. It's going down. I want to thank my good friend Chuck Mahler.
Thank you, Gary.
Our special guest, State Representative Ron Reynolds. And I am the 5-star general. Black folk, you can read all the books you want to read. You can have all the money you want to have. But until you really figure the game out, you know what they call you. Until tomorrow, we'll holler at you.